Hey, how goes it? Ken Bosak from the bitcoinpodcast.com, here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I get to talk about these things with my boy Vortex from the World Crypto Network. Vortex, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, how you got into crypto, and what you do in this space.
So, hey, thanks, Ken. Great to be here again. This is like my second time, I think, being here. It's pretty fun. I'm really like your work. I'm glad that you are a part of the other content creators in the space. So it's really great to see more and more people talking about Bitcoin. When I first got into podcasting with Bitcoin, it was during the downtrend of Bitcoin. So back in 2015, there was just not a whole lot of people talking about Bitcoin. And now it really seems that it's just completely blown up. And I'm just really excited to see that, really excited to see people like yourself excited and passionate about Bitcoin and everybody in the chat. So it's really great to see and really great to be here and really exciting to experience this additional part of the bull run. We're in almost a 2-year bull run now, so this recent leg up over 3,000 to new all-time highs, really excited. It's got me really happy. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, that's all you can say, really. We'll see what happens. I mean, we could jump into, since that's kind of a segue into what happens next. I don't want to go too far because we do get a lot of new people all the time. So if you're new, please try to keep up. But right now, there's almost nothing else to talk about but some of the more higher level understanding of crypto. What do you think is next for Bitcoin, though? Up in November, we have another fork coming where the SegWit supporters agreed with the big block supporters that if the big block supporters signaled for SegWit, SegWit supporters would say, and then in return, signal for bigger blocks. Now, do you see a potential fork coming our way with this? Do you think any SegWit supporters are going to say, we got what we wanted, screw you guys, we're just going to keep doing us? Or do you think it's just going to just go along the natural path?
So, I don't know if you've seen the chart that's been going around there recently, Ken, but there has been a chart just recently that plotted the different things that happened to Bitcoin with the PBOC, it started with the Mike Hearn leaving, right? Then we got a million different other things, including the PBOC and then now the Bcash. There's always something trying to bring Bitcoin down, but it continues to shake it off. The market continues to absorb it and realize that it's BS and more FUD, and Bitcoin continues to rise. So, I am looking for a 4 to 5 week upside here for Bitcoin going into the activation of SegWit, which we're looking at happening, next Tuesday. It'll be locked in. So we're looking at an activation of anywhere between 21st, 22nd, something like that. And so that's going to really propel the price. And then I'm looking for a bit of a downside when we have the SegWit 2X nonsense that's going to start, I believe, their hype cycle in September. So, I'm expecting a dip around there. And really what's next for Bitcoin is real scaling. We're going to get SegWit. We're going to get Schnorr signatures. We're going to get all of these. We're going to get Lightning. We're going to get confidential transactions. We're going to get all sorts of amazing new features on Bitcoin. We're going to let the core developers do their thing and continue working their asses off to make this thing backwards compatible and as stable as possible. The two biggest tenets, for Bitcoin Core: backwards compatibility and stability. And of course, then you got decentralization, number 3. These are 3 tenets that the core developers will not risk. And so far, the market has been agreeing with them. Again, Bcash was released and crashed. And right after the fork, it crashed and Bitcoin ascended to new all-time highs. So, it really kind of proves that they can continue to fork all they want, but, there's only ever going to be one BTC.
All right, that brings me to a great question, at least I think so, not to pat myself on the back. What makes the BTC that we're calling the real Bitcoin over BCH, Bcash being the real Bitcoin? What makes Bitcoin the real Bitcoin?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that makes the real Bitcoin is the nodes. What the nodes choose, or you could call it the users, but the users running those nodes, that is what validates the chain. That is what chooses what is the valid and real Bitcoin is the nodes. And right now, 95% or higher of the nodes in the network are signaling or running core software. And so that is what the network currently deems to be the real Bitcoin, is whatever Bitcoin the Bitcoin core developers are releasing. Now, that may change. That may not be the way it is in the future, and that's fine, But right now, that's how it is. And we have these people that are just like, well, why core? Why can't we just do this? Why can't we just tweak this? And it's like, look, it's like going to somebody in a nuclear power plant talking to people with hazmat suits and be like, bro, why can't we just press this button right here? We've never pressed it before. We don't know what could happen. And of course, the nuclear guys will be going, look, I can tell you scientifically why this is not going to work, why this is going to explode the power plant, but you're not going to understand. And so they're just going to keep asking, why? Well, why? No, I don't know. Let me press the button. Let me press the button. And so that's kind of what we're left with. And but the network, it continues to be resilient, shrugs off all of these fork threats, these FUD threats, these mining threats, and continues to rise to new all-time highs.
Now, the reason we're looking at smashing the button is for SegWit. We're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to update and upgrade the software that Bitcoin is. Can you explain maybe a little bit like what SegWit is and why it's so important that basically the update of itself almost in some sense, politically, everyone was talking, it's going to kill Bitcoin if it's so necessary. Why is it so doomy and gloomy? So like, why was the risk worth it to get SegWit into Bitcoin?
Sure. So SegWit fixes just a load of problems that has been plaguing the network for years. It's just absolutely huge amounts of things that you can actually look and see what SegWit fixes. The Bitcoin core team has a very amazing page about the benefits of SegWit. And I encourage you all to Google that and check that out. Maybe, Ken, you can put that in the show notes. But there is a link to show all the benefits of SegWit. And there's a huge page with hundreds and thousands of words describing all of the amazing things. But a couple of the big ones really are the transaction malleability fix. This is just numero uno, number one. This is an absolutely important feature, and people don't realize how important this is. But really, the transactions are not 100% reliable. They can still be somewhat obfuscated and changed, to allow a double spend. So we can't fully rely on them yet. But SegWit fixes that. SegWit fixes this very basic. It's such a very basic base level, building block level fix that from once we fix this, we can then build all sorts of amazing things on top of it, like Lightning and like things that we can't even actually describe right now. We can actually do Schnorr signatures. Then after that, there's all sorts of fixes that we can do, but it all starts with SegWit. And of course, in addition to all that, it increases capacity. So that is an amazing thing. Now, of course, there is a little bit of risk because it does significantly change how the transaction is actually formed, right? It segregates the signatures from the witness, right? And so it is a little bit of a change, but what it really is, this is an upgrade. I mean, this will allow all sorts of future fixes, future additions, future features that we just simply couldn't do before. Now, in the case of Lightning, you can actually do Lightning without SegWit. It's just not as secure. It's not as easy. It's not as great. It's not as scalable. It's just really not great. We can do Lightning the way it's meant to be done, securely, cheaply, globally, instantly. This is really important. So SegWit really is going to open the way for Lightning. And people like to say that Lightning is years and years and years away. It's not, dude. They are doing tests right now between Litecoin and Bitcoin. They've done, they're doing tests like on the test nets. There's atomically swapping coins. So it's happening right now. I fully expect Lightning networks to be in full production by end of next year across the scale. I'm not saying it's going to go mainstream, but I'm saying full production, people using them, millions of transactions going across them as early as the end of next year.
That's what I'm most excited about is the atomic swaps and the option for confidential transactions. I think that's going to change the game for exchanges. It's going to change the game for Shapeshift, that's for sure. I mean, they're almost unnecessary in that world. They're almost like the Pony Express once we get atomic swap. And then you have things like Monero and Zcash and Dash that want to be anonymous, but once Bitcoin gets these updates, those things are essentially obsolete. Bitcoin's updates make other blockchains obsolescent once it engulfs its core principles. And I like to tell like people, like, anything your favorite altcoin can do, Bitcoin can do, and it can do it better. It's just when and eventually it will, but is it the right time? You know, let these other altcoins and what they have to offer be a punching bag for you know, like a side test net. Is this something people really even want? Is it that important that, you know, Dash is getting this much, or whatever coin is getting this much attention? Maybe we should implement it, and maybe it will become something that just is part of another thing that had nothing to do with that intentionally. So like I do see a lot of reasons why people would talk out of two sides of their face about this, because, you know, if you're an exchange, or if you're Shapeshift, or if you're this or you're that, you don't want Bitcoin to replace you by getting better and better. Just like, you know, the Pony Express didn't really want, you know, things to put it out in obsolescence. Like the horse and buggy industry protested against the car industry. You know, it's just happening now in blockchain. And I don't think people see it that way, but I mean, once you start to think of it like people have alternative motives in this space that, you know, Bitcoin will eventually replace.
Yeah, and it's really important to just to not downplay how important transaction malleability is to fix. We see Bcash just get attacked with it as early as last night or this morning. They're already getting attacked by transaction malleability, and they've been around for less than a week. So this is an absolutely important fix.
What do you think would be next? Like once we get to this, what do you think would be? Obviously, we got the 2 megabyte hard fork coming up in November, but after that, it's the thing that people aren't really perceiving. What's next after this? What's the next this?
The real scaling begins. Work on Lightning, Schnorr signatures, confidential transactions, all sorts of different things that core Mast, fiber. You know, there's all sorts of different real scaling issues that the core developers will be working on. So that's what's next, is real scaling, not just increasing the block size indefinitely to gigabytes and terabytes size, making it completely impossible to run. Remember, the blockchain is the most inefficient database on Earth. It is slow. It is expensive. It is not practiced anything but a global reserve currency.
Yeah, world ledger, an open world ledger.
Absolutely.
What coins do you think have a future alongside of Bitcoin, though? Like long-term use case, or at least you hope that they succeed in the future because you would like to live in that future. Like, what coins do you think have that longevity that Bitcoin has?
So, in my opinion, Bitcoin is all that there actually will be in the future. So there'll be forks of Bitcoin possibly, and there'll be side chains, and there'll be drive chains. But it'll all be Bitcoin because, you know, we all run over TCP/IP. We all use POP3 for email. The world decides. They have to decide on a set of rules that they can all agree on to then build the next thing. You can't build, we couldn't have gotten the internet the way it is today with a million different internets, right? With a million different TCP/IP protocols. It wouldn't have worked. We have to all agree so that we can agree on a set of rules so that we can then build the next thing. The step 1 is agreeing to rules, right? Step 2 is enforcing those rules. Step 3 is using those rules to build something on top of it, right? So there's a certain order to these things, and you just have to remember that it's early days. It's very, very, very early days for Bitcoin. This is it's really like in the 80s. If you had to put a number on it, this is the internet in the late 80s. We don't even have name systems yet. You know, we're still sending these addresses that are like this long, right? It's ridiculous. This is early days. So we've got a lot of work to build, a lot of infrastructure to build. And now Bitcoin is going to be the incentive to do this. Remember, Bitcoin is going to allow the internet to continue expanding even further out than it could before, because now the internet can pay you. You can get a job on the internet, and the internet can pay for itself now because of Bitcoin. So it doesn't matter where it is. You know, Tone gave this absolutely amazing example the other day on the World Crypto Network, where he said, imagine Netflix wants to go into Africa, right? They can't go into Africa right now. But imagine them, all they have to do is throw up a QR code. You throw up this Bitcoin QR code, and you can a la carte watch a Netflix show. Now Netflix can be in Africa. And now Netflix has an incentive to run nodes and to maybe even do mining. You know, so Bitcoin it allows the internet and the prosperity of the internet and the features of the internet to just completely spread even farther than it could have with just the internet itself. So the next stuff is definitely scaling, and it's going to be absolutely exciting times in the next couple of years.
I like that you said that it would be forks of Bitcoin instead of like altcoins or other blockchains. It would just be forks of Bitcoin's blockchain doing all these tasks in the future. Because I've always said, like, it's going to be a lot of things that need blockchain technology that we can't even fathom right now, that we're like, oh, we could do that with that. Or this would save us money if we did that. And I'm like, well, if everybody used Bitcoin's blockchain, it would just be like overloaded. And then if you have forks of Bitcoin where the forks have particular use cases, I could see that, and that would technically be the altcoin in that sense. Because like I like the idea of Golem and stuff like that, like where they rent out extra space, and that blockchain uses your extra computational power, so you can make crypto by lending out your computer space. But if there's a fork of Bitcoin that's dedicated to that process as well, why would you choose that token over a fork of Bitcoin that does the same thing?
Well, also remember, it's not really going to even be forks, because this pony is a one-trick pony, the forking of Bitcoin. You have to have major hashing power behind it, major developers, community behind it. It's just too expensive to maintain a fork or to maintain an altcoin. It will be too expensive in the future when Bitcoin is so profitable and so available to everybody in the world. Because remember, the Bitcoin of the future will not be the Bitcoin of today. Today, Bitcoin cannot scale and do every single thing. So we need experimentation across all of these different altcoins. And it's absolutely beautiful. But one day, Bitcoin will do enough to where everybody will just build on top of that. And we'll have our money protocol. We have TCP/IP, right, for the actual packets to travel over the internet. We have POP3 for the email. We have various instant messaging protocols, and now we will have the money protocol. Bitcoin, the internet of money, the protocol of money for the internet.
Will you think Bitcoin will ever be considered cash? And I would like to segue that into another thing in a second. But like the principle of cash is, if I hand you $5 bill and you hand it to Tone Vase and Tone hands it back to me, it's still a $5 bill. It didn't lose anything for you to transact with three people. So will that, like everyone keeps saying Bitcoin will be cash, it will be money, Bitcoin, and I love, when I first got into this, one of the biggest misconceptions I was really into was there's no fees. I was like, oh, there's no fee. That's the first thing I found out was bullshit. So like, how do you think that will happen? Like, there will be a time where you could send Bitcoin back and forth and it will be such a small Satoshi of a fee that it will basically be like handing cash back and forth? Or is that a pipe dream and there's always going to be a significant, you'll see the fee, it'll almost be like taxes when you buy something at the store?
So you have to understand, Bitcoin will be the heartbeat of the internet. There will be Bitcoin time. All of our times will be based off of Bitcoin. The genesis of the block will power the planet. The planet will have a heartbeat every 10 minutes. And on top of that heartbeat, we'll have systems on layers and systems and chains all the way up to the top. Just like we have on the internet, we have layers all the way to the top, from the World Wide Web and then FTP and then HTTPS and all of the layers on top that we will build. So all the chains will, side chains and drive chains and and even basically everything to do with Bitcoin, all of these layers above Bitcoin will all be circling around Bitcoin. They'll all be tied to the main chain. So there will be, for example, Lightning networks, right, where everything will just be instant, but then it'll be settled on chain every 10 minutes or so. But on the Lightning, you'll have instant payments. So what that'll end up being is that normal people like me and you will end up using a derivative of Bitcoin, like Lightning. We'll end up using some type of layer of Bitcoin above Bitcoin, but it'll be tied to Bitcoin, so we know that it's still sound money. So most likely, because remember that currency is just the first application of Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
There's so many more things we can do with Bitcoin we haven't even thought of yet. So currency is only the first application, but as far as people just trading and sending money day to day, that will be on a layer above Bitcoin. It might be layer 2, might be layer 3, might be layer 4, but they all eventually settle down to the one main chain that the entire planet is based off of, both in time and value.
Amazingly well said. Let's see if we can, I got one more question and then we can go into a different topic altogether. Could you do me a favor? Because you're great at explaining, could you explain the difference between BTC and BCH, and what's different about each one compared to the other? Because a lot of people keep asking me, like, what's the difference? I'm just going to send them a link to this video.
Okay, well, the first major thing is, Jihan and Bitmain and Roger, right? They got their way. They have 8 megabyte blocks. So that's the first major difference. 8 megabyte blocks. We're like, holy moly, right? That should be amazing. We should see 8 megabyte blocks all the time being mined, right? Oops, we're not actually seeing that. We're seeing empty blocks still being mined on the BCH network, and which we presume to be ASIC boost running on that network because it does not have SegWit. So a big difference is they have 8 megabyte blocks, they don't have SegWit, and they don't have replaced by fee. So they don't have the transaction malleability fix, which we found out because their chain got attacked last night and early this morning, making the entire network pretty much unusable for a period of time. And so the big difference is, again, 8 megabyte blocks, no replaced by fee, and no SegWit. That's really the main differences on the technology level. Then you go further out and you find out that they have a development team of all of 2 people. 2 people who you've probably never heard of. These are not people that were cited in the white paper of Bitcoin. These are not people that are cited in any cryptography papers. these are people who think they can just go in on their own. So for me, the biggest difference between BCH, Bcash, and Bitcoin is the developer support, which is the core developer. The core developers are what are supporting Bitcoin. These are the people that are cited in white papers, cryptography papers. These are the people that helped build the tools that the pieces that when you put Bitcoin together, or when you put them together, form Bitcoin. Because remember, Bitcoin is made up of technologies that are 30 years old. What's fascinating and nuanced is how they was put together in such a way to create this worldwide blockchain. So those really are the main differences, and we're going to find out if through the market forces, right, which choice is the better choice. The core developers that has been building Bitcoin and keeping Bitcoin 100% uptime for the past 8 years, or these new guys. It's pretty much this simple: bench warmers or your AAA team. Which one you're going to choose. Well, we're going to find out, but I got a pretty good idea of which one is going to actually win out, and that of course is the whatever chain the core developers are supporting.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. There's so much happening right now in crypto as far as like what appears to be like winter is coming, winter being regulations. Do you think that the SEC is going to, everyone's saying, I don't want to say kill ICOs, but, you think it's going to put a damper in the parade, or do you think it's just FUD? Do you think the SEC has no power here?
So this is an all-new world, of course, that we're living in. There's a lot to learn. The SEC did release some information about the DAO which happened over a year ago. So they didn't release really any guidelines, really anything concrete. All they said is that the DAO was in fact a security, and they said that they would not be prosecuting anybody at this time. So they essentially just came out and said, "Hey guys, we're watching. Just be mindful that if it's like the DAO, it's a security." So we're still years away from proper regulations, from this being not the Wild West. I mean, this is not going to slow down ICOs as much as you might think. What it will do is put pressure on exchanges, because the regulation or the guidance that came out said that any exchange selling something that could be a security is also liable. So you're going to see exchanges probably start dropping crap coins left and right. And there'll be these shit coins will be relegated. Basically, these altcoins will be relegated to anonymous exchanges that don't want to comply with this regulation. And so it's going to be an interesting time. But I don't see ICOs going away anytime soon. It's got at least a while to go. And of course, Bitcoin is. They pretty much came out saying that Bitcoin is not a security. They have no ability to regulate Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. There's no central authority they can go to. There's no person that they can put in jail. So, if anything, Ethereum, in my opinion, needs to be worried. Now, they did come out and say that Ethereum was a currency, but that's just on what they think about right now. Give that a few more years and 1,000 more Ponzi's on top of it, and they might change their mind. So we'll have to see and play it by ear, but it's very early days. It was very, very limited guidance that they put out. And I think we got at least another year of the ICO madness.
At least another year. I'm thinking a year to two.
Yeah.
I think personally I like I love that Ethereum accidentally became like a GoFundMe for ICOs. I don't know why. It tickles me so much because like they want it so hard to not be money, and now they're deemed money. They want it so hard to be smart contracts, but all they are is a GoFundMe now, and I feel like that's going to, put like it's going to put a lot more pressure on the wrong side of them when it comes down to their developers trying to work on what they originally started out to want to be, smart contracts. And now people are just using them to get ICO started, and a lot of these people are using their ENS to collect the funds. And it's not like, obviously that's not the most secure way on that last what was that, Parallel that was hacked, and a few ICOs lost millions of Ether through that.
Parity, that was
Parity,
the Parity
one.
wallet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Parity wallet. And when I saw that, I was sitting there, I think Swarm City was affected, and two other projects, and I was just sitting there like, once you have a couple $1 million, you'd think you'd be a little bit more on top of your security game. But that goes to show you.
Like you got to remember, Ethereum's marketing game is on point. That's what has always been their strength, is their marketing. Remember, they first they were a world computer, then they were a smart contract, then they were better for governance, then they were better for this, one thing. Then they were better at scaling. Then they were better at whatever problem is currently plaguing Bitcoin in the media, Ethereum will market themselves to be the solution for. So that's what they've always done best. That's what they continue to do, is just marketing. It's just marketing and hype and marketing and hype.
Now, you said that the regulations wouldn't affect us or Bitcoin, but it will affect the exchanges. Personally, I can see just a 2017 is going to be the exit year, the year of the exit scams. You're just going to see things just disappearing because they don't want to deal with anything. For example, bitmixer.io, valued at $6 million, they didn't even want to sell because they were like, look, shit's getting serious. We're done. And we recommend anybody mixing Bitcoin stop, because eventually you're going to get alpha bait and you're going to find yourself dead in a Thailand prison cell, and you don't want that. So what do you think will happen in America within this year with exchanges? Do you think that we're going to see exit scams, or do you think we're going to see conformity? I personally don't think Poloniex is going to be like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, regulations. Me personally, I think Poloniex is going to be like, how much do we have? Oh, fuck this, shut down. So like, what do you think's coming our way, and why? Why they'll choose that route?
Yeah, so with this regulation guidance that was issued, I think that exchanges will start changing their tune. They're not going to hold as many assets as they were. We're already seeing Shapeshift and other exchanges start to remove coins. So it's already begun and underway. I do think that we're going to probably see more exit scams in the next couple of years as the entire ecosystem continues to mature, and shed light on all those dark crevices. So as we mature, as more money comes in, as more things get developed, as more people come online, it's very similar to the internet. Remember, in the internet, the early days, there was a lot of child pornography and all of these scares and all of these things that people were doing with it, right? But what do we use internet for now? Mostly cat videos, right? So that's what will happen with Bitcoin, is that in the future it'll all be cat videos. We won't have to worry too much about this type of thing. But during the transition to that, to get from here to there, is going to be rough and messy. We're going to have BTCE like exits and captures, and Alpha Bay's down, right, and gone.
BTCE's
down and gone. We're going to see, the mixing services are leaving. So we're going to see the appearance of maturity, which is true, but in reality, we're also going to see a double down on fungibility with confidential transactions, things like Monero. We're going to Mimblewimble. We're going to double down eventually. Now that we're past the scaling BS, right? Now that we got SegWit, we can now focus on priority number 2, which is fungibility. And so I think that's the next thing after scaling that we're going to be working for, after Schnorr signatures and after Lightning and after the scaling stuff, because that's really the next thing is scaling. But really after that, in the next couple of years, we are going to focus priority like 100% on fungibility, because that is perceived, and rightly so, as the next big threat to Bitcoin. So that's going to be a very important thing for the core developers and the community to tackle.
Yeah, speaking of like the next big threat, I think the next big security focus is going to be on hardware. And my man John McAfee, who's crazy ass, said he'd eat a dick if Bitcoin wasn't worth $500,000 by 2020. He is very adamant about the hardware that we're using to communicate with the software that we're using to communicate with the blockchain. We saw that with Jack's wallet through the Chrome browser. We saw that with many other things. It's just, exactly. Thank you. Yes, and I don't know. What do you think? Will companies like Apple and Samsung start making products in anticipation of hardware security and hardware encryption mattering to the user because of Bitcoin? Do you think that like Bitcoin's blockchain will evolve our everyday hardware because it makes security so much more necessary? Most people don't give a shit if you hack their phone and steal their nudes. You know, the whole fappening with the celebrities and stuff, like they didn't care. Nobody cared. But if you potentially could lose all your money, oh my god, you better make sure you have 2FA on and everything else. So do you think as more and more people and as bigger and bigger blockchain gets, that, you know, hardware companies that like Windows, Microsoft, Apple's iOS, BlackBerry, all these companies, do you think they're going to start taking, oh, you know what, Bitcoin security, blockchain, hardware encryption into consideration? Or do you think like we're going to have to go to people like John McAfee, who's specifically interested in blockchain and specifically interested in hardware encryption?
Yeah, so we actually spoke about this the last time I was on your show too. Really, what we spoke about and what I continue to believe is that Bitcoin is going to usher in a new era of hardware and software called trusted hardware and trusted software. So this will be software and hardware that has been cryptographically proven to be secure, to be untampered with, to make sure that your private keys will not be leaving through this hardware and software anytime soon. So there are people working on the next version of the internet, like with MadeSafe, where all of the internet is encrypted by default, and you don't use passwords anymore. Everything is derived from your private key, all your identities and all your software, and then presumably this private key will be protected from the hardware itself through trusted hardware from companies like Apple and through software, from companies like Microsoft. So the Bitcoin will usher in this new era of the most trusted hardware and security you've ever seen. Because like you said, we've never had to protect money on our computers before. If you look at the banking systems, their systems are so antiquated, built in the 70s, just barely hanging on, mainframes, horrible stuff, old stuff. And that's what runs our financial system. That's literally what's powering our current financial system is 70s hardware. So
it is. It's so scary.
It's pretty bad. And so, the hackers around the world continue to hack banks, hack what's that damn backbone network that Swift. Swift that the banks currently use continues to get hacked like every year. I mean, I shit you not, go and Google this. Every single year, Swift gets hacked for millions and millions of dollars. So now with Bitcoin, we're seeing all of these other things get hacked, right? We're seeing cities infrastructure getting hacked. And this is a process that will continue for years. Bitcoin will wipe through the system, wipe it clean. It'll take out all of the fat and of Wall Street. It'll take out all the fat of this bloated security sector. I mean, it's going to be crazy. Because of Bitcoin, we're going to have to secure our hardware and software like never before. So yes, absolutely. Bitcoin is going to usher in this new time of having to have real hardware, real security, real trust. Because we learned from Vault 7 that we are completely owned right now. Intel, for the past 3 years, if you own a chip that was made in the last 3 years, you are owned by default by the 3-letter agencies, because they have agents at the actual hardware plants, at the manufacturers. They've stopped actually hacking them and just infiltrated them. Instead, through social engineering, they literally own agents at all of the major companies. So, it's going to take a complete reform of how we build hardware, how we build software, and how we issue this to the user. And, it's all coming together. The trusted hardware, the new version of the internet that's encrypted by default, whether that comes from MadeSafe or whoever builds it, we're going to find a way to build it, because our current internet is broken. Our current internet is broken. Our current financial system is broken. We're propped up on these broken systems, and it's causing what it allows for is all sorts of fraud. Fraud is the business model. Fraud is the business model in all sorts of areas, in finance, in healthcare, and you name this, you name the, in pharmaceutical goods, you name the industry, and fraud is usually the business model because all this stuff gets through the cracks of these old and aging systems. Blockchain technology and Bitcoin is really going to come through and cut all the fat out of that. Similar to how the internet destroyed a bunch of monopolies that had on the written word and the newspapers and the media. The internet's going to rip all of that apart. And Bitcoin will rip all of those monopolies apart in healthcare, finance, law. It doesn't matter. It's going to come through and it's going to wipe their business models clean because the business model of fraud is not sustainable. And that's I think that's pretty much agreed across the planet as Bitcoin price continues to rise and rise and rise and reflect that.
See, that I love that because you're talking about Bitcoin almost as like being a shield. And you could talk about it being used as a sword in the scenario of the WannaCry virus and how the hackers chose Bitcoin over any other transfer of value method. And that made Bitcoin look bad in the sense, but it also was like, look at the whole process of ransomware started with mail physical cash in an envelope here. Then it went to mail a money order or a check to this address. And then it said, you know what? Just use PayPal. And then it was, you know what? Forget PayPal. Use Bitcoin. So it was like, if you follow the evolution of transfer of value and ease of use, you'll see that that's why Bitcoin was chosen there. But do you think things like WannaCry and hackers that are choosing to use Bitcoin and, things like the Silk Roads and stuff like that, they're almost like the opposite of what we were just talking about. It's like they're using that to take advantage of those vulnerabilities that we're saying Bitcoin will eventually solve, but it almost feels like it's the sword in one hand, shield in the other, and you're banging them against each other.
Remember, what these hackers are doing to these systems may seem bad, may seem malicious to some people, but from a security perspective, they are absolutely doing you a service.
Yes,
thank you. They're absolutely doing you a solid. They are creating a net positive for society as we prove that these systems are no longer secure, and they have to be upgraded. You have to keep freaking people's data secure. Your 70s antiquated systems are no longer okay. Your fraud business models are no longer okay. We're going to hack through that shit. We're going to reveal the documents that need to be revealed. We're going to hack through the centralized corrupt systems that need to be hacked through. And Bitcoin will allow all of this. Bitcoin is powering all of this. Without Bitcoin, it could never be done because we would always be within the system. You can't destroy and disrupt the system from within the system. You have to build a system outside of the current system. And that's what Bitcoin represents. This is a money and a currency and a monetary system outside of the state, outside of the systems that we've had for the past 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. That's what's really important. Bitcoin, they're trying to make Bitcoin become a part of the old system. They're trying to literally like put a horse on a car, and it's not going to work very well because in a few more years, cars are going to completely crush those, right? So we're going to build the next level of technology. We always build the next level of technology with the latest and the greatest that we have right now, right? We always use the most top of the line technologies to build the next top of the line technologies. And what that does is it just creates an absolutely insane S curve that you can very much see in things like the rollout of PCs, the rollout of the internet, the rollout of mobile, now the rollout of Bitcoin. It's going to these world-changing technologies. Always overpromise for the first few years, but then you come back 10 years later, and now it's just everywhere.
Yep, exactly. I said to a friend earlier today, he was talking about don't you judge me audience, but we were talking about Pokemon cards, and we looked up the holographic Charizard, and guess what? One holographic Charizard is worth 1 Bitcoin right now. And I said, you think Bitcoin is worth something? Wait till it's half as popular as Pokemon.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. We've already been doing digital currencies for many, many years. 97% of the actual fiat currency on the planet is already digital. And for the past 10 years, we've had games like Pokemon, World of Warcraft experiment with these online currencies. And we've seen that they can achieve value globally. They can actually achieve a global value that people can, from either side of the planet, say, okay, this is not only worth money, but this is how much it's worth. And so, you know, the thought of Bitcoin not being able to do that, that's ridiculous. Of course, that's going to be the first application for Bitcoin, which is the ability to move a digital bearer asset across the internet. So, of course, we're going to use that first for money. But, you know, beyond that, people are already creating mind-blowing ideas, like the example I gave with Tone about how Netflix can just move into Africa just like that with Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah, that would be perfect, honestly. I mean, even like, I think it was, please correct me if I'm wrong, it was Venezuela, I believe, that I saw an article about how they're using World of Warcraft or some kind of video game currency because its value is more stable and stronger than their local government currency. So, I mean, I just like, I feel like, how do they know about this video game and use that currency over Bitcoin is beyond me, but obviously Bitcoin is still like in the shadows. Not too many people know about it yet.
Remember, it's the 80s, man. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about Bitcoin yet.
I love when
none of the kids knows about Bitcoin yet, but they're going to find out. And the people that will find out first and hoard it the hardest is countries like you mentioned, Venezuela. This Bitcoin is literally saving lives.
Yeah,
saving
we're spoiled here in America.
Feeding people. Yeah, feeding people, saving people's lives. You know, providing shelter. This is already providing people on the ground today, saving lives. So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I can't wait for you know, I like, for me personally, when I first started looking into like blockchain, decentralized, you know, things, I was like, one of the first couple things that ran through my mind was like charities. When you see a non-profit charity, that's bullshit. That non-profit is bullshit. The CEO got a fucking Ferrari and a mansion. So there is like, it doesn't, that's a lie. But if somebody out of the kindness of their heart wrote a smart contract, put it up there, and people sent money to it, it would distribute to the as it was designed, and there would be only the fee of gas or whatever, but it wouldn't be a profit. That would be a true non-profit charity through blockchain. And that's just like one of bajillions of things that could be done with this technology, but people only want to reflect on, WannaCry hackers want it for ransom, and they don't want to focus on the fact that the NSA created the software that the WannaCry virus ran off of, and the fact that the companies that were affected took this much into consideration about your security as a customer. It's just, it's so weird how people look at things.
Transparency, you touched on it so perfectly, Ken. Transparency, man. That is what the world wants. Only through transparency can we actually build real huge societies. Can we actually build societies that don't run off of debt, that don't run off of war. This is the only way to do it, is real, true transparency, individual sovereignty. Like, individual sovereignty is really something that's only been talked about in recent times, but with Bitcoin, we can actually achieve it. There is now systems like that Bitcoin government. I forget what it's called. I forget now. We'll have the link in the show notes, but I forget what it's called. But they're actually competing with governments for services, for like insurance and identity. They're actually literally, BitNation is what it's called. BitNation.
Okay, BitNation.
You can Google BitNation. They're competing in some countries right now directly with governments. And again, this is the 80s. Just wait for another 10, 15 years, and you will see that these services running on top of these blockchains will compete with governments, and they will dominate them. They will, which what ends up happening is that removes more and more power from the government, places it back with the people, and allows us to build better societies, more positive societies that are not built on secrecy, that are not built on debt and war.
Perfect. War. That's one thing I feel like. I'm worried about, like, when Bitcoin does become the world money, it will fund war. You know, that's if eventually everything will be using blockchain, it'll get itself in there.
Exactly. If people want war, then sure, let them fund some war. We'll see how much funding that really gets. We'll see how much people really do want war.
Good point.
When the money is not created out of thin air and distributed to them from a freaking central authority on the top of a pyramid, we're going to really find out how much people actually want war. And I'm telling you right now, it's almost nobody.
Yeah, that brings me back to a full circle question there when you said out of thin air. A lot of questions I've been getting about Bitcoin. Bcash, I almost said it. Bcash is, how did $4 billion just come out of thin air? Like, it just, hey, it's here, it's $4 billion market cap, what up? Like, how did that money just appear out of thin air?
Sure. So, people, this is really baffling most people, and it really is a baffling concept. We've never seen anything like this before. We don't have anything at all to compare it to. Like, the closest thing we have is a stock split, and that's absolutely not what's happening here. Instead of a split, what's actually happening is a doubling. It's a copy.
Yeah.
It's actually not a split. They're actually duplicating the Bitcoin blockchain. And so that's why, everybody got this free money, because basically the market decided that it has value, because it already decided that Bitcoin has value. So that means that when we created a copy of it, the market automatically decided that, hey, this has some value. This is just copying Bitcoin, right? Well, then shit, the speculators will give it some value.
Okay.
And so that's what's happening. Remember, it's only valuable, just like fiat paper money. It's only valuable if the people believe it has value. And there are some people, some big blockers, that believed it had value.
Yeah, it's going to be an expensive electric bill running their miners mining that shit.
Very expensive.
I hope that it forces their hand.
Thousands per day.
Yeah.
It's great.
I hope that it forces their hand to go back on this, and we see Bcash just disappear into oblivion, and it's just gone. And if you didn't sell yours now, I mean, I don't. It was free money, so don't feel too bad if it disappears. But if it does, that means Bitcoin that you still had is going to be worth a lot more. Because, again.
Now, I will say this though, though Bcash, I almost said Bcrash, though Bcash will crash immediately, because people understand, the market is finding out more about it, that it really isn't worth that much. It could be a great test net. We have to let the market decide to figure out what's going to happen. Is this really valuable? But my opinion is it's not really that valuable, more than a science project. And so the price will go down. But remember, there are powerful forces like Jihan and Roger out there that really do want to, take on the core developers, which is kind of hard to do, because it's basically, when you say taking on the core developers, that's like saying you're taking on the community, because the core developers are a decentralized entity made up of community members, each with their own thoughts and their own agendas. There are many times where they don't agree with each other. Look at Greg Maxwell and Luke Dash Jr. over the UASF, the user activated software. Mm-hmm. Greg Maxwell was like, hell no. Luke Dash Jr. was like, look, this is what we need, and they disagreed. Now, it turns out that Luke was right with his game theory skill. Freaking thank you, Luke, so much. And then I forget the name who wrote BIP91, but thank you so much for that as well. That allowed miners to save face, and BIP91 was just a miner-activated BIP148, right? So it allowed them to save face a little bit. But look, at the end of the day, this is just the beginning. We're at early days. I'm really confident in the core team and what they can do. So it's going to be great.
Speaking of great, Bitcoin is great. So, like, why aren't rich people buying more of it? And is it really, like, I like talking to my friends about this, and maybe you'll have a different thought on it, but, like, how does a millionaire go about buying Bitcoin? Like, how does Mark Cuban buy Bitcoin? How do you get $1 million, option on Coinbase? You just can't. So, like, and if you did buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin, you're fucking yourself if you want to buy more next week, because you just inflated the value on yourself. So, like, how and why are millionaires not in this yet?
Right. So we have a couple things here. So first of all, we do have GBTC. So that is a bit of a more, traditional fund where you can invest Bitcoin that way. And so that is kind of for the big millionaires there. And as well as Ledger X is actually doing an options market.
Yeah,
they're bringing an options market to Bitcoin. So that's coming. So this stuff is coming. So the answer to your question, Ken, is that it's early days, man. It's really, really early days. The entire Bitcoin crypto market market cap, the entire crypto market cap of all of these coins, even Bitcoin, is 100 billion. That's literally the price of like a couple of bank buildings. Okay. That's nothing, man, compared to these 100 millionaires and billionaires. So the answer is, how do they begin investing? Well, first, they don't care about it yet. They simply don't care about it yet. However, as I said, options markets are coming. Hedge funds are coming. These options for very rich people are coming. As Bitcoin market cap raises, as the community grows, as more and more services and companies start using it, as it becomes more useful, as it becomes a greater and greater utility, more and more people will invest in it, thus raising the market cap, thus bringing these new options in that will allow the billionaires to invest. So this is coming, and I assure you that by 2020, I say this often, the years between 2020 and 2024, that's when governments start buying and holding Bitcoin like they currently hold gold. So we are not far away. You know, first the billionaires and then the governments. It's all coming very, very soon, quicker than anybody can imagine. But by 2024, this game will be over. The S-curve will be at the top. You will not be able to obtain a single Bitcoin anymore, you know, and not even close to it. And by 2028 to 2020 to 2030, you know, we are now running over the top of Bitcoin for 90% of the financial network.
I'm excited for the future, man. I already picked out the yacht I want. I got it on eBay, got it on my wish list. I'm just waiting for the day I can trade 1 Bitcoin for my yacht and just cruise. And I think it'll be a little bit.
I'm waiting for where I can, you know, maybe 1 month of bills is like worth half a Bitcoin. That would be nice, because then you could, you know, spend you could spend a while. It's all relative, right? Everybody has their price, but that's the beautiful thing, Ken, is that Bitcoin, you know, these rises in all of these cryptocurrencies allows it to fund back on of itself, to compound on itself. Remember, we bootstrapped a $100 billion network from nothing, from zero. So we can absolutely take this 100 billion to the next level of a trillion, and then to 10 trillion, and on and on and on. This is the Pandora has been opened. We're not going back. We now live in a world where people are rich enough to be able to fund this stuff, to be able to fund company ideas. You know, there's a lot of people in the crypto space after this summer that no longer have to work. There are more millionaires made in Ethereum in this summer than there was, you know, in Bitcoin probably total. So because again, Bitcoin launched in almost a complete vacuum. There was nothing else. So, you know, it was allowed to be traded around the world virtually for free. Anybody could mine right off their laptop. So we don't see that anymore with the competition. And again, another reason why Bitcoin, there'll only ever be 1 Bitcoin. It cannot be reproduced. Its growth, its organic growth in the ecosystem, it cannot be reproduced.
I love it. I wanted to wrap up with a question or two about wallets, man. Like, what hardware wallet do you think people should go for, and why? And what software wallet would you recommend, and why? There's so many options. That's just most people's first step into getting into Bitcoin is spending a week trying to figure out what wallet they should use and why. Maybe you could help them narrow that time down a little bit.
Sure. I mean, there's a bunch of great wallets out there. I mean, there's people creating great software. I can't recommend enough the hardware wallets. You know, you got to get, you know, there's a bunch of them. There's a KeepKey, there's a Ledger, there's a Trezor. All of these are great. There's software wallets out there like Electrum, Multibit HD. There's a bunch of great wallets out there too. It's kind of hard to recommend because it's kind of personal preference on what you're looking for. But really, to cut through the slack, I just, for a new person, it's just hard not to just say buy a Trezor and be done with it.
That's one of these guys right here.
Absolutely. An absolutely beautiful device. I mean, you could plug that shit into a computer with all of the viruses in the world, and your private key will still remain safe on that device.
Yes, for sure. I love the Trezor. It's definitely, I like how it's more compact than my Ledger Blue. Like, this is exactly the right size for me.
Absolutely. And again, you know, they're going to come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And this was pretty much predicted that, like, once Bitcoin went over $1,000, we have to create better protections for the money. And this is just the beginning. These hardware wallets are just the first phase of actually trying to protect our Bitcoin now that it's valuable enough to justify this level of protection. And we have many more levels to go.
Exactly. Hey, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you again, and what you do, where you're at, and we can wrap things up, man, because this has been close to an hour, man. I appreciate all the time you had for me today.
It flies by, man, when I start talking about Bitcoin, I gotta say. It really flies by quick. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's where I do most of my work. That's where most people can find all my work, which is basically doing podcasts and tweeting about Bitcoin, really just kind of I guess I call myself a Bitcoin evangelist, Bitcoin speaker. Been in the space since 2012. Really, really enjoy talking about it. You can find me on Twitter at @the1vortex, all spelled out, no numbers, just @the1vortex. And of course, all of my videos that I do are on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel. You can just Google World Crypto Network and find out all about us. I just have to give props to the World Crypto Network recently. This week was just absolutely amazing. We covered the BCH stuff live, and you know we got 50,000 views on there. Max Kaiser was calling us out all week long, giving us shout outs. Just absolutely amazing. Over 3,500 live viewers.
That was amazing.
We can't thank the people enough for following along, and we're really excited to continue bringing you guys more and more Bitcoin content. And people like Ken, you got to support people like Ken, people like Adam Meister, people like BTC Benny. These guys are doing amazing work, and eventually we're all going to get thousands and tens of thousands of views because this space just keeps growing. And I don't think anybody anticipated that the social growth would go right along with the price growth. You know, I don't think anybody really anticipated that. I sure as hell didn't. The WCN is blowing up. Adam has over 10,000 followers. I guarantee you, Ken, by the end of this year, you'll have over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Easy.
That would be nice.
It compounds on itself. Remember, you know, once you get a certain amount, then you can get the next amount easier and easier, and on and on and on and up it goes. And as Bitcoin, the ecosystem continues to grow, everybody will be benefiting, and it's just going to continue to blow up more and more. So, yep, at the One Vortex and the World Crypto Network, we really appreciate you guys, and we have a great time talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, guys, definitely check out the World Crypto Network. I think you see me in the chat just messing around with everybody. I kind of piss people off for fun in there, but it's like, it's just a chat box, you know what I mean? I miss my Poloniex troll box, so I got to get it in where I can. But you guys have some of the best like speakers. You guys have like one of the best like YouTube networks period for crypto. So I definitely highly recommend anybody listening to this who hasn't already subscribed to the World Crypto Network, do it, because you're missing out. I mean, you guys got Tone Vase on there now every day, Jimmy Song's on there all the time. I mean, you guys are killing it. And like you said, what is it, you were live and you got what, like a few grand in super chats?
Yeah, that one video on Monday, that 8-hour video, got over $2,000 in donations.
Dude, that is friggin' epic, man.
It was crazy.
For real.
We were absolutely ecstatic. We couldn't believe it. It's all going towards World Crypto Network. It's all, you know, nobody's buying Ferraris off of this stuff.
Yeah, you guys got to get better internet. You guys got to get some stronger internet.
We're trying to get better microphones, better internet. We're trying to do more shows. We hope that one day we can actually like pay people to just be on the WCN all the time and just have a 24-hour live stream of different people across the world.
You know what? That brings me to my last question. When does Ken Bosak get on the World Crypto Network?
You are great with these shows, and so I think you get your subscriber count up, you get your views up, and we'd love to have you on there. I mean, if you can think of a unique show that you want to put on there, because remember, you can continue doing your stuff too. That's what we really look for. We're kind of like a decentralized group where we want people to contribute, but we also want them to have their own stuff too, you know, and benefit from that as well, benefit from the network effects.
Yes.
So definitely, kid, if you got a show idea, man, and that you want seen on the WCN, this goes for anybody, you know, contact, you know, Mad Bitcoins on Twitter. Thomas Hunt, he is the one who runs all this stuff, and we'd love to have. We're looking for content creators. So definitely, if you got a show and you're talking about Bitcoin and you got an idea for a show on the WCN, hit us up, and we would love to talk to you.
That would be epic, man. Thank you so much. All right, guys, all the links are in the description box below. Make sure you check out, what was that thing again? The One Vortex, right, on Twitter?
Yes, sir.
And World Crypto Network on YouTube. The links are in the description box. Don't forget to click subscribe, flick the alert bell, hit thumbs up, and have a day.